Around August of 2022, HBO Max started implementing their decision to remove content from their platform in order to avoid paying people for licensing fees and royalties. This is an extremely common reality of streaming platforms as content revolves in and out of availability. However, this marked a momentous and dark occasion where Warner Bros. Made the decision to remove multiple movies and shows whose rights were held by HBO Max. This included films like Moonshot, Superintelligence, and An American Pickle, signaling the beginning of a strange time in human history where parts of culture were being destroyed about as quickly as they're being made, which raises the question: Can I just take this stuff from you? Not too long ago, Final Space, which was an animated show mostly aired on Adult Swim, was cancelled due to the Warner Media and Discovery merger that prompted the mass exodus on HBO Max, or Showtime, or Paramount, whatever it's called. Shows get cancelled all the time, and it's never the bad ones, but 1 year later, it was announced Final Space would also be removed for various dodging paying people reasons, meaning the moment the Netflix license ran out, the well-liked and, more importantly, recently made show would no longer exist. 2024 is here and treating this thing great, and lo and behold, Final Space was fully removed from Netflix, making the passion of many talented creatives that finished airing in 2021 effectively inaccessible to the public. It's like 4 degrees where I live. I'm putting this thing on double denim. This meant the completed show was available for under 3 years, which is an extremely tight window if we apply it to anything else. Unlike films, most TV shows now never see a physical release, and Final Space is no different. As far as I can tell, the only way you can watch it is through the Internet Archive, but the copies there are pirated, which I think makes it a crime, and I would never encourage that. You should support the mega conglomerate that owns it and watch the show through legal means, and that's my point. This all sounds really depressing, because it is. But this is one of the better case scenarios. It's still available to the public in a Google search kind of way, and the creator, graciously granted by the company that refused to let him finish the show, has been allowed to finish the show in a graphic novel. Crater was a Disney Plus original that released in May and was removed in June, which is rather short, and in response to people rightfully complaining about the 1.5 month watch period, it was re-released to purchase, and I don't know if it's actually available on Disney Plus anymore. It doesn't say that it is. Netflix rightfully catches some flack for greenlighting 2 seasons of a new show, specifically so that a new producer can come in and then immediately cancel it, because apparently 2 seasons brings in new subscribers, but 3 would instantly bankrupt the company. Netflix has already come under scrutiny from people in the industry for fudging numbers so they don't have to pay royalties. How long before it's decided that they're just not worth paying any royalties at all and they just remove it, or that they're taking up extremely valuable home screen space in between the critically acclaimed Kissing Booth 1 and the critically panned Kissing Booth 2? What's happening over at Netflix? There's a lot of kissing going on. Generally, we've gotten a lot better at preservation as time has gone on, considering that the French army requisitioned Georges Méliès's films and melted them into boot heels. Now, this has been helped by digital files, as you only need 1 copy to stay alive, but we don't like that version. What if you got a CGI musical number instead? I'm so glad I don't really care about Star Wars, because that's like a full-time job, and no one is ever happy. Season 1 of Supernatural on Netflix has most of the genuinely iconic music that is now forever tied to the series changed for licensing reasons. When Netflix added One Piece, they used the remastered 16:9 version, which crops in, making the close-ups very close up. I need you to back off, dude. You're breathing on me. The 4K release of True Lies employs AI upscaling so heavy-handedly, I consider it a worse version than the DVD. My point is, we cannot assume that companies will preserve their body of work or provide the best version, even if it's in their best interest, let alone make it available to own, as everything slowly moves towards streaming. But sir, you might say, that's just streaming, where you pay a low price for a wide selection of films with the inherent agreement that you don't own any of them. Now, this is an excellent point. I brought this up mostly because it unites us as Americans and brings to attention how strange it is that the public can lose culture that was released less than 5 years ago. Also, don't call me sir. That's so weird. Ugh. The obvious advice is to just buy instead of streaming, but apart from literally owning the disc, purchasing things doesn't let you own them either. Take for instance the Discovery shows that were made available on the PlayStation libraries. I'm not sure why. Maybe they sold the consoles at a loss to make a profit on all of those UFO Conspiracy Season 1 sales.
Be below freezing, which it was not at that day at O'Hare. It was around 50 degrees.
Who watches this? Late last year, it was announced every licensed show would no longer be available, not to purchase, mind you, to watch. This meant if you bought a product or products, or for some people, a lot of products, they would no longer be available to access and you would have lost a 3, maybe 4-digit sum of money. Luckily, not long after, the decision was reversed due to updated licensing arrangements, and at face value, the consumer won. They get to keep what they paid for with their money. But as the Verge article puts it, the whole situation is a reminder that, in many cases, buying things digitally essentially means that you're paying for a long-term rental. I don't entirely know how legal it is to do that. It varies state by state in America, but Australian consumer protections have a lot of language around product quality, fitness for use, and matching description. They also overwrite terms and conditions. If the business is operating in Australia, they obviously have to follow the ACL because it's the law and can't be excluded through contracts, as was found in Valve Corporation v. which was over Valve saying that they don't offer refunds for Steam Greenlight games. This was found to be false, and that Valve's operations still fell under the ACL while also extending the definition of goods under the law, which have more protection than services, to computer software. So I don't know if this would fly, but it still happens, so whatever, I guess. Okay, so no buying things like digital software that Australia considers a good, not a service, which is really cool. I love my country. I'll only buy physical hardware. But if it runs software, oopsies. Please welcome Spotify Car Thing, released in 2021 and designed to add Spotify interfaces to old cars, that now found a niche as a desktop media hub. And say goodbye, Car Thing, because it's been officially discontinued. Not only discontinued, but immediately and intentionally bricked, because Spotify owned the thing. Subdivision A, Section 58, baby, hurrah! While the Car Thing has been open sourced, Spotify themselves refused to mention it, instead encouraging people to actively waste money and throw it away. The slow rollout of its release, added with the refusal to point to a GitHub page, essentially turns it into the world's fastest e-waste. Also, if you want a refund, apparently you have to contact them directly, because how is this not a crime? This is also the case with various video games, which I'm being told now I enjoy. At the lowest end, we have things like DRM, or Digital Radicalization Machine, or Digital Rights Management for short, or DRM for short, or Digital Right. DRM takes many forms, but it's a catch-all term for anything that tries to verify access to the product. This could be a separate games launcher, basically malware, a questionnaire that requires the manual, or having like a GameStop employee follow you home from the store. You need to back up, I can feel you breathing. DRM only benefits the seller and regularly gets in the way of buyers, like blacking out the screen when you're trying to screenshot the Boston Celtics losing to the Atlanta Hawks, or making you get out the manual, or slowing down the game, or locking you out of the game that you legally bought. This isn't like a trial run, or like you buy the game and it can break to stop you stealing the game you just bought. If it works, in any case, it will make the experience worse. There's just enough evidence I can generally claim that. Denuvo says that their not malware runs behind the game, takes up a fraction of processing power. Never enough to get in the way, like a polite little mouse nibbling on some cheese. Say whatever you want, you weird little rodent. If it does something, it needs to use something. Many games have had Denuvo removed later in their life or leaked without it, allowing for direct comparisons, and some of the highlights include glacial loading times, low frame rates, aggressive stuttering, all for the low price of a new release. Wowza, where's my mouse? Where's my petite little rodent friend? Now, the negative effects of the not malware in the thing that you bought range from annoying to literally defining if you enjoyed the game, and while some of the comparisons between the game with and without Denuvo aren't bad, the Denuvo version never does better than without. Alright, dude, I guess I just won't use streaming sites and carefully pick what Blu-rays I buy and what games I purchase, and that's a great plan, except they can still somehow take it away from you. Late last year, Capcom, a company who's great at decisions, retroactively added Enigma DRM to Resident Evil Revelations. This is in spite of the game generally not doing very well, because it is over a decade old. This game is theoretically old enough to be a fan of this channel. I'm just gonna let this hang. In order to protect the future purchases of a game no one is buying, they ruined the experience for people that actually owned it with lower, more unstable frame rates, while also breaking many of the mods the community had made. Tough luck, dedicated fans, better luck next time. This is one of those fabled win-win scenarios where everyone loses. They obviously reversed this decision because the mild backlash is enough to tip the scales because it's over a decade old. What sales were you projecting for this? Another one of their products, Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, that could have been shorter, initially had Denuvo for a few months on release until it was removed, I assume because the license ran out, only to have Enigma DRM added instead. Oh, tough luck, buddy! Also, it's worth mentioning, I don't know why this in the script, Mega Man Battle Network Collection, all those games, they're on the Game Boy Advance. Like, they've been emulated for probably as long as most of you have been born. Let's just say, magically, somehow, it does not affect the performance or stability of the thing that you're supposed to own. Unfortunately, I write the videos here, so I obviously know that there's a counter-argument. In early November 2021, several Denuvo games straight up didn't work or launch because, as Denuvo themselves stated, one of their domains was unreachable, and while the issue was fixed kind of quickly, it brings to light the reality that even in its best implementation, there's just a chance that the thing you bought doesn't work through no fault of your own. What if the game company just goes out of business before Denuvo is removed from the executable file? What if the license runs out and Denuvo stops servicing that game despite it not being removed from the game? There are enough combinations of greed, malpractice, oversight, and bankruptcy that a game can be made unplayable for large stretches is, for me, not just likely, but inevitable. All of this is in spite of the fact that anti-piracy measures in general don't really have significant evidence to prove they work. Sony doesn't port their games with Denuvo, and they are available to pirate day one and still sell extremely well. Elden Ring was pirated the exact same day it came out and is by far the most successful FromSoft game by a wide margin, and its DLC is probably going to push it into the top 50 within the next year. That is, as long as Nintendo's and Kinect Adventure don't make another hard push. Cyberpunk 2077 is on the top 50 list, and it was made by a company whose storefront doesn't even allow for games to have DRM. Like, you could buy the game and just immediately send it to somebody else. So remember, if you've ever tried to play a single player game and you've run into friction, maybe someone's server's down, you don't have internet, or you tried to watch a movie and ran into HDCP errors, don't worry. The person who didn't pay has a way better experience than you. Your one sucks specifically because you paid. Think of it this way. If two people had the exact same car, except one of them needs to call their parents every single time they start it, and they need to lug John in the front seat wherever they go, even though he's chewing the seats, from an outsider's perspective, they may have paid for the car, but it really doesn't look like they own it. It doesn't stop there, because why would it? Things are so great already. I'm so tired of all this consumer protection. Earlier this year, because it literally never stops, racing game The Crew was kindly dragged out back and told to look at the flowers. This one is the most uncomfortable of the ones I've mentioned so far because the game is a live service model as it requires internet to play, and now that the servers are shutting down, which you would expect, it's not that simple. Where it gets weird is even though the game is no longer being supported, it's not playable. As in, like, the file that runs the game doesn't do anything. If you wrote a batch script that just printed the words on the screen, "The crew, press any key to continue," it would be as much of a game as the official version is right now. This raises weird legal questions like, it's not free, so it's a purchase. But if the seller can take it away completely, as in removing the game license from your account, what are you buying? There is an argument to be made by lawyers that you paid for a service instead of a product. That's what I mentioned before, which raises even more questions like, why? It's been compared to MMOs like WoW, but in that case you are acutely aware of how long your service will last and how it's being provided. In the words of a German lawyer that I can't find the name of because I don't know if you've noticed it's all in German, it's extremely strange for a service to have no apparent duration. He makes the example of a gym membership, which is clearly a service, but it would be very strange if you only paid a single sum for it and you weren't sure if it lasted for a second or a year. There's also the sticky situation that UK consumer law requires commercial practices to make information readily available that the average consumer would factor into their purchase. Judging by the fact that no one would buy the game if it was only playable for a single day before being shut down, it's safe to say that it probably would factor in. And while thankfully this has been brought to wide awareness by people like Ross Scott of Accursed Farms, this isn't a super clear-cut infringement of consumer protections and it hasn't really been tested in the courts because, again, I don't know if you've noticed, everything you pay for can be like taken away from you by the people that sold it because why wouldn't it? The world of entertainment gets darker every day and I implore you to pay attention. Thanks to the fellas for watching. I don't know if anyone's going to be interested in this topic, but I wrote it rather quick. It's been on my mind. I'm recording this on the same day as Game 4 of the NBA Finals and what just happened? What a weird game. I don't think I've seen a stat line. I went back. I don't think I've seen precedent where the team that is clearly supposed to win it gets blown out by like 30 points at halftime or something and then loses by 40 by emptying their bench. Like, Celtics are very clearly the better team. They should probably win this a lot easier. Apart from that, obviously, thanks to the fellas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Yeah.